Good evening, everybody. Uh, hey, I want to welcome you guys back to the Conversation 98, and tonight has been a night for us all. There's been a lot of um, uh, what I would say technical difficulties tonight. I don't know why it wait to do this. Everything be good and it wait to do it, but hey, right now, uh, that's what I got going on. But hey, we're here right now. We're doing our thing, and I hope everybody is doing well. I look forward to the conversation tonight. Look forward to having a dialogue. I appreciate everybody. Appreciate you. Um, and tonight's topic is going to be a good one. I know that I think that's probably why that's why we're having issues with this thing coming on. But besides all of that, man, we're gonna get into it. I appreciate everybody. I just wanted to take this time to thank everybody for your continued support, and let everybody know that um, we really do appreciate it. It is definitely something that it's been a part of my life now for 4 years. As I think about it, next month will be 4 years. 4 years ago in 2020, September 2020, I started this journey on this podcast, and now we're on episode 191. And I don't take that for granted. I'm very appreciative of it, um, and thankful just to continue to be here, and share and continue to share. So again, man, let me know where you're tuning in from. This is an interactive one. So hey, feel free to comment, feel free to be involved. We won't be before you long. And hey, thank you, Miss Robinson. Thank you. Coming in loud and clear. Had some technical difficulties. This thing kept refreshing and refreshing on this side. But I said I wasn't gonna get mad. That's the Alabama. I wasn't going to get mad. I was going to stay on because I feel like tonight's topic is a topic that's going to be helpful to discuss. And I think it's a topic that I personally can't say that I saw anybody discuss before. And it came up today, had the idea of doing it earlier, and I felt like it is necessary the conversation to have. So with all of that being said, we're gonna go ahead on and get started. And with that, we're gonna start off with the topic is understand the difference between emotional sacrifice and emotional suicide in a relationship, because there's a distinct difference. There's a distinct difference in when you're making an emotional sacrifice. And an emotional sacrifice, and just in its core, and what I'm talking about, a sacrifice leads to something that's going to give something or life. And I use it equated to life. Something's going to birth from it. You're sacrificing emotionally for this period of time for your significant other, for because it's going to yield something. There's a yield that comes with an emotional sacrifice. The other side to that is emotional suicide. And emotional suicide is you are given the same thing as you're sacrificing for, but there's nothing that's going to be beneficial emotionally on the other side of it. So I equate that. That's why I said understand the difference between emotional sacrifice and emotional suicide. Because it's a distinct difference. It's a very distinct difference, and I think a lot of times it has it not knowing that difference and going into different relationships. And listen, this relationships can be any type of relationship, but just you're looking at it from an intimate relationship. There we have to understand those differences, because one thing you have to think about, there are going to be a lot of times where in relationships that there will have to be emotional sacrifice. There will just have to be emotional sacrifice because life happens. Life happens. People go through things. People deal with things. People deal with through life changing. As you get older, you go through those transitions. You go to those, I would say, those seasons of life where you are the child, and then now you become a parent, and you have children, and then your parents get older, and then you start to get in that phase where people, your loved ones, may be transitioning or passing away. So you will change, and at different points in that relationship, there will have to be emotional sacrificing, emotional sacrifice to make sure that the people have what they need. So that it is necessary to understand that they're in a relationship, a good and healthy and functional relationship, there will have to be emotional sacrifice for it to be healthy. It just will. And that's what it is. That there will have to be emotional sacrifice. But so many times I think we miss it, but so many times I want people to understand this and understand this good. So many times in relationships, we have conflict with understanding, and sometimes we may feel that we are emotionally sacrificing for somebody, but the problem is you're really committing emotional suicide for somebody. Now, how would you know the difference? The difference between emotional sacrificing is that if when you emotionally sacrifice, there is a return, there is a yield, there is something that's going to come back to you that's for the betterment of the relationship. That's going to be betterment of the relationship. So there's something that's going to be returned for that sacrifice. So it's almost like an emotional investment. But that emotional suicide is almost as if you got a spending spree and you're just giving, and nothing is ever returning back to you, because the intent is not for it to come back to you. The intent is for the other person just to receive so that they can benefit from it. And many of us, we commit emotional suicide. We do that. Many of us commit emotional suicide thinking that it is an emotional sacrifice. And we do that because we fall into these roles, and we begin to stay in these roles, and we begin to operate in these roles because we are hoping for the best. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is actually what you should do, because every day, let's be honest, from an emotional standpoint, when you start talking about love, every day you're not going to feel like you care for this person. Every day you're not going to feel like that person is the best for you or whatever. But many of us, we commit emotional suicide thinking it is emotional sacrifice because we embody roles, and in those roles we lose ourselves in those roles, and the other person end up taking advantage of it to the point to where they're benefiting from it with having no intention to give back to you. So you're not going to get a yield, and you're thinking that you're doing the best and you're doing it under your best intentions, but you're really committing emotional suicide. You're doing it under the best intentions, but you are really committing emotional suicide. You are. And that's something that something that we have to look at, something that we should look at. That's something that we should be able to talk about. That's something that we should be able to get mature to a space to where we can have that conversation. Now, I don't want people to understand this, and I think this is good. So one of the big difference that you can tell between emotional sacrifice and emotional suicide, where the biggest difference in the common not the common denominator, but the difference between emotional sacrifice and emotional suicide is somebody in there has manipulation. They have no intent to return anything back. They know that you are emotionally sacrificing, but then they just feel like, you know what, that's what you should do. No, that is not the case. That is not the case of what you should do, because you are emotionally sacrificing. And watch this, a sacrifice should be only for a period of time. It shouldn't be become a steady state of your character, especially in a relationship. A sacrifice, when you sacrifice something, that is a specific time limit with that sacrifice. It is. Hey, Miss Geraldine, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. But I got to expound on that a little bit more. But a sacrifice is for a specific period of time. You sacrifice time, you sacrifice money, you sacrifice sleep, you sacrifice eating certain food, you sacrifice a lot of different things to reach a goal. You sacrifice that. Yes. Now, there's a difference between you sacrificing something and you adjusting your lifestyle for something. That's to maintain that. That is a difference. But when you start talking about emotionally, when you are talking about an emotional sacrifice, it should be for a specific period of time to accomplish a goal. That's you agree with somebody that, hey, I will make these sacrifices. We will work together to do X, Y, and Z. But it shouldn't become the norm where you are the one that's been doing that for years, but you never getting anything back from it. That is emotional suicide. And with emotional suicide, that will begin to erode and eat at you at the core of who you are. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. And one thing about it, they say one thing about it and the two things for sure. You know, when we think about it, if you allow yourself to stay in a state of emotional suicide, it has the potential to make you very bitter as a person. It has the potential to make you bitter because you feel as if you are dealing with the hurt and the wounds of somebody taking advantage of you. Because emotional suicide is really somebody really taking advantage of you emotionally. They are not willing to reciprocate the same energy, to reciprocate the same efforts, and willing to even make the same level of sacrifice emotionally for you that they either themselves freely get from you or expect you to give to them. But we got to be careful not to allow that to become bitter, so that because if it becomes bitter, that means that it'll begin to impact us and our ability to love and grow and interact with others who are deserving of what you have to offer. We got to look at that. We got to really look at that. We got to take inventory of that, and we can't allow that emotional sacrifice and getting over the hurt and feeling of that we've been manipulated to allow us to become bitter. So that's something that we really, really have to look at, because if we don't, then what we'll realize that will begin to erode and deal with us and impact our relationships and future relationship with other people. And then if you and a lot of people and a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but and they really don't like to talk about it, but I'm going to say it. There's a lot of people who are wounded because they have allowed themselves to continually operate in emotionally to continue to commit emotional suicide, hoping that somebody else that they were committing suicide for would turn around and appreciate the sacrifice that they are making emotionally for them. But the problem is, many of those people who have no intent of sacrificing back or reciprocating, they have no intent of doing that, but they will sit there for year after year after year after year because they know they benefit from it. But the thing that we have to do is, yes, you're going to be upset when you recognize it, but you got to stand up on your own 2 feet, see those people for who they are, stand up on your own 2 feet, and adjust and move accordingly, because everybody don't deserve your sacrifice. Everybody don't deserve your sacrifice. They don't. I promise you, everybody do not deserve the sacrifice that you give to them. Listen, a lot of people, and this is going to hit home for some people, but a lot of people have committed emotional suicide with their kids. Yeah, you love your kids, and I'm not suggesting that you don't love your kids. I'm not suggesting that you don't sacrifice for your kids. But a lot of your kids aren't willing to reciprocate a level of appreciation for the things you do for them or what you have done for them. They feel like that's what you're supposed to do. So guess what? You're thinking that you're emotionally sacrificing for them and you're doing all these things for them, and they don't give 2 flips about what you did for them. They just want what they want. Now, you can continue to try to tell yourself that's emotional sacrifice, but it's really emotional suicide. So you have to realize, okay, if they're not going to reciprocate, why am I willing to continue to sacrifice emotionally for them? I can love them, but that don't mean that I got to sacrifice for them when they show me that they're not appreciative or they're not willing to reciprocate. Because if they're not willing to reciprocate and I'm sacrificing, I'm committing emotional suicide. I'm committing it and they benefiting from it. And I'm sitting around here depleted and just emotionally drained because I'm pouring out in somebody else's cup who ain't never worried about to say thank you. And the reality is you don't have to do that. There's no obligation for you to do it. There's no obligation. And I really hope we get to that point to where we can settle down for that, not settle down, but we can accept that and realize that, hey, I'm not obligated to do X, Y, and Z. The things that I'm obligated to do, that's what I would do. But hey, don't emotionally sacrifice stuff for people. I'm just saying for people who you know that ain't gonna appreciate it. And I know it can be hard because many of us have spent years of our lives emotionally sacrificing for people, and now we realize that they never really were willing to sacrifice for us. And some of it comes from they don't. Some of it comes from because they were just selfish people. Some of it comes from because people change and they're going through different things and they don't know how to communicate. Some of it comes from some people just don't know any better. And I got it. But for whatever reason, you are the one that choose if you're going to sacrifice or not. You're the one that's going to choose if you're going to emotionally sacrifice. You're the one that you're going to choose. So the choice is yours. So once you realize, no matter how long it's been, no matter how much you may feel like that they gotten over on you, once you realize that they wasn't going to sacrifice for you, the choice is yours. Either you choose to continue to sacrifice or you choose to say, nope, not doing it anymore. And that's not listen, this is not a malice. This is not coming from a malice place. This is not saying that there's a justification for you to be nasty to people. No, stop, man. Listen, stop doing stuff for folks emotionally, sacrificing for people who will not do the same for you. And that's what it is. And it's not a conditional thing, but and I want people to understand that when I talk about emotional sacrifice, I'm not speaking on it being conditional, where I only do it because you do it. No, what I'm saying is at the beginning of it, both parties should be willing. So when both parties are willing, it's not even based off of if you do it, I do it. Both parties saying, hey, I'm doing this together. There should be a mutual agreement and a mutual understanding that this emotional sacrifice will lead to a greater good for that relationship. But if you got somebody in there and they know that they're benefiting, they know that they get more than of it, they know they get more, they benefit more from the sacrifice than the other person, and they're never willing to recognize that and even come back and compensate for that, that's showing that that person don't care about that person at the level that person is claiming to care about it. So what you need to do is you need to look at that and say, hey, I need to make some changes. I need to make some changes. And it's a lot of the times, listen, I know people don't like to hear it, and it gets deep down and it gets dirty with them, but because it hurts their feeling. But this is the God that is true. A lot of the change that we seek, especially when you start talking about emotionally in a relationship, with making emotional sacrifice and understanding the difference between emotional sacrifice and emotional suicide. The difference between you sacrificing and you committing suicide is based off of what you continue to willing to give. And many of us, we giving from a good place, but that giving from a good place, when it's pulling from who we really are, we got to start to say, is this healthy for me? We got to start asking the question, is this healthy for me? Is this healthy for me emotionally? Is this healthy for me physically? And how am I benefiting from this sacrifice? And if there's no yield or no return on the sacrifice, you're the one that control what you're giving. So you need to start looking at that and be like, hey, This ain't yielding back. And I'm not talking about right now, but over a period of time when you don't see a willingness to yield back or give back to you, cut it off. Cut it off. I promise you, cut it off. And I'm saying that because so many of us, we have sacrificed so much emotionally to people who just have never appreciated. And that's something that we really that I want to address. But so many of us have sacrificed so much emotionally for people who just never appreciate it. We've sacrificed for years. We sacrificed to the point to where we consider them. We were thoughtful towards them. We did things. We were there. We made time for them. We were there when they needed us to be. But then when those same times and those same situations for them to be there for you, you always got excuses. You always got reasons why. And that really, when you start to think about it, you have to look at it. You're committed emotional suicide at that point. Because if somebody continue to show you who they are, but you continue to give to them because you expect them to be better, or you can see the potential in them, but potential is not reality. Potential is what somebody can do. What they are doing is who they are. So you need to believe who they are. You need to believe who they are and treat them accordingly. I think because I'm getting older, man, I realize the importance of dealing with people that add value to your life, not in a selfish way, because a lot of people like to bring this stuff up. I'm just this and I cut people out. No, a lot of times you cut people off and you doing them a favor, because a lot of times we are the problem. But I'm talking about if you seeing somebody who is not adding value or not being there uplifting you, it's good to cut them off, and don't be afraid to do it. So, hey, I just thank you guys so much for rocking with your boy tonight. I hope this was helpful. Make sure you go check me out on all social media platforms that I got right here. The Conversation 98 on YouTube, the Conversation 98 on Instagram, at 98 Conversation on Twitter, X, whatever it's called now. The Conversation 98 on here, and the Conversation _98 on TikTok. So make sure you guys go like, share, do all of that stuff. But again, man, I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and look forward to the next subject. We're on episode 191. We 9 episodes away from episode 200. I would have never thought that when God told me, gave me the vision to just start this, I would have never thought that I would have gotten to close to 200 episodes. But hey, we've been going strong. Back to college football season, so getting ready to watch my team. I hope all is well. Wish you guys a blessed and wonderful week. You guys have a great evening, and God bless.